The white wall of snow hit Olivia Brennan's face with such force that she stumbled backward, her horse rearing in panic as the blizzard descended upon the Oklahoma territory like a vengeful spirit. One moment she had been riding carefully along the familiar trail toward Muskogee, and the next, the world had vanished into a swirling chaos of white that stole her breath and froze her fingers even through her worn leather gloves. The temperature had dropped so suddenly that her lungs burned with each desperate gasp, and she knew with absolute certainty that if she did not find shelter within minutes, she would die out here alone, just another casualty of the unforgiving frontier winter of 1887. Her mare, a chestnut named Maple, whinnied in terror and bolted despite Olivia's attempts to control her. The reins slipped through her numb fingers as the horse disappeared into the white void, leaving her stranded on foot in the rapidly accumulating snow. Olivia wrapped her thin coat tighter around her body, knowing it was inadequate for this sudden storm. She had only been planning a short ride to deliver eggs to the Henderson family, expecting to return to her small cabin before noon. Now she could barely see 2 feet in front of her face. Terror clawed at her chest as she stumbled forward, praying she was moving in any direction that might lead to safety. Her shy nature had always kept her isolated from most of the community in Muskogee. But right now she desperately wished she had accepted more invitations to socialize, to learn the land better, to have someone who might notice she was missing. At 20 years old, she had been living alone since her father died 6 months ago, keeping to herself and barely speaking to anyone except when necessary to sell her eggs and occasional sewing work. Through the howling wind, she thought she heard something, a sound that did not belong to the storm. She stopped, straining to listen, her heart pounding so hard it seemed to echo in her ears. There it was again, the low sound of cattle lowing, which meant a barn, which meant shelter, which meant life instead of death. Olivia pushed forward toward the sound, her boots sinking into snow that was already ankle-deep. Her skirts were soaked and heavy, dragging against her legs as she fought through the storm. Just when she thought she had imagined the cattle, a dark shape loomed out of the whiteness. A barn, solid and real, its red paint barely visible through the snow but its size unmistakable. She reached the large sliding door and pulled with all her remaining strength. It barely budged. Panic gave her a surge of energy and she pulled again, managing to create a gap just wide enough to slip through. The moment she was inside, she collapsed onto the hay-strewn floor, her whole body shaking violently from cold and exhaustion. The barn was warmer than outside, though still cold enough to see her breath. Several horses occupied stalls along one wall, and she could see cattle in pens toward the back. The animals watched her with mild curiosity, undisturbed by her dramatic entrance. Olivia lay there for a long moment, trying to catch her breath, trying to stop shaking, trying to comprehend that she was alive. "What in the hell are you doing in my barn?" The voice came from above, and Olivia's heart nearly stopped. She looked up to see a man climbing down a ladder from what must be a loft. He was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing work clothes covered in dust and hay, with dark hair that fell almost to his collar, and a several days' growth of beard on his strong jaw. His eyes were a striking blue-green color that seemed to pierce right through her, even in the dim light of the barn. Olivia tried to speak, but her teeth were chattering too hard to form words. She attempted to stand, to explain, to apologize for the intrusion, but her legs would not cooperate. The man reached her side quickly, kneeling down beside her with a concerned expression replacing his initial surprise. "Christ, you are half frozen," he said, his voice gentler now. "How long were you out in that?" "I do not know." Olivia managed to say through chattering teeth. My horse, she bolted. You rode out in this, he asked, then shook his head. Never mind, we can talk later. Right now we need to get you warm or you are going to lose fingers and toes at minimum. Before she could protest, he scooped her up in his arms as if she weighed nothing. Olivia's natural shyness made her want to object, to insist she could walk, but the truth was she could not, and his body heat was already seeping through her wet clothes in a way that made her want to weep with relief. My name is Quinn Dalton, he said as he carried her toward the back of the barn where she could now see a small room built into the corner. This is my ranch, about 4 miles outside of Muskogee. You are safe here. Olivia, she whispered. Olivia Brennan. Well, Miss Brennan, today is your lucky day, because I was planning to stay out here tonight anyway to watch over a mare who is due to foal. If I had been up at the house, you might have frozen before I found you. He pushed open the door to the small room with his boot, and Olivia saw it was set up as a basic living space with a cot, a small stove that was already burning, a table with 2 chairs, and some shelves with supplies. It was clearly where ranch hands stayed during calving season, or when weather required someone to remain with the animals overnight. Quinn set her down gently on the cot and immediately went to the stove, adding more wood. We need to get you out of those wet clothes, he said, then held up his hands when her eyes went wide. I will turn around and you can wrap yourself in these blankets, but those wet things will kill you just as sure as the storm would have. Olivia knew he was right, but her shyness made her cheeks burn even though she was shivering. Could you step outside? Not with that storm, he said firmly. I could get lost just going 20 feet. I will turn around and face the wall. I give you my word as a gentleman that I will not look. He suited action to words, turning to face the wall and crossing his arms. Olivia hesitated for only a moment before her body's desperate need for warmth overcame her modesty. With shaking fingers, she worked at the buttons of her coat, then her dress, then her layers of undergarments, all of which were soaked through. She had to stand to remove her skirts and petticoats, and nearly fell over from the effort. Finally naked and shivering worse than ever, she grabbed the thick wool blankets from the end of the cot and wrapped herself in them. You can turn around now, she said quietly. Quinn turned and nodded approvingly, though his eyes stayed carefully on her face. He gathered up her wet clothes and hung them on pegs near the stove where they would dry. How are your hands and feet? Can you feel them? They hurt terribly, Olivia admitted. That is good, that means no frostbite, he said. He poured something from a bottle into a tin cup and handed it to her. Drink this slowly. It will help warm you from the inside. She took a cautious sip and gasped as the whiskey burned down her throat. I do not usually drink spirits. Today you do, he said firmly but not unkindly. Doctor's orders, and I am the closest thing to a doctor you are getting until this storm passes. Olivia took another small sip, then another, feeling warmth begin to spread through her chest. Quinn pulled the second chair over and sat down near her, close enough to help if needed but far enough to be respectful. What were you doing out in this weather? He asked. It was not like this when I left, Olivia said defensively, then softened her tone. I was delivering eggs to the Henderson family. The sky looked fine, maybe a few clouds but nothing threatening. Then suddenly the wind picked up and the temperature dropped, and within minutes I could not see anything. Blue norther, Quinn said grimly. They come on fast this time of year. You are lucky you found my barn. I know, Olivia said quietly. She looked down at her hands wrapped around the tin cup. Thank you for helping me. I know I am intruding on your property. Intruding, Quinn's eyebrows went up. Miss Brennan, you are staying alive. That is not an intrusion, that is just being human. Something about the way he said it, so matter-of-fact and warm, made Olivia's eyes sting with tears. She blinked them back quickly, not wanting to appear weak, but one escaped and rolled down her cheek. Quinn noticed immediately and his expression softened. "Hey now, you are safe," he said gently. "I know you got a scare, but you are going to be fine." "It is not that," Olivia said, wiping at her eyes with the blanket. "It is just that I realized out there that I could have died and no one would have noticed I was gone. Maybe not for days. I live alone. I have no family. I barely speak to anyone in town. I could have just disappeared and been another unmarked grave when they found my body in the spring." Quinn was quiet for a moment, studying her face. "I would have noticed," he said finally. "I have seen you in town, at the general store and walking to church. I have wanted to introduce myself a dozen times, but you always seemed so distant, like you did not want to be bothered." Olivia's eyes widened in surprise. "You have noticed me." "Of course I have," Quinn said, and there was something in his tone that made her heart skip. "You are hard to miss, Miss Brennan. You have this way of moving through the world like you are trying not to disturb anything, but all it makes me want to do is know why. What makes a beautiful young woman want to be invisible? Beautiful." He had called her beautiful. Olivia felt heat rise in her cheeks that had nothing to do with the whiskey or the stove. "I am not beautiful," she said automatically. "I am plain and shy and boring." "You are none of those things," Quinn said firmly. "But I can see that someone made you believe you were, and that is a damn shame." Olivia looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Quinn Dalton had a strong, honest face with lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often. His hands were work-roughened but gentle, and there was an intelligence in his gaze that made her feel seen in a way she had never experienced before. He was probably close to her age, maybe 22 or 23, young enough that he had not yet developed the hard cynicism she saw in so many frontier men. "My father," she found herself saying, surprising herself with the admission. "He always said I was too quiet, too timid, that I would never find a husband because no man wanted a wife who could not even speak up for herself. He said I was a disappointment." Quinn's jaw tightened. "Your father was wrong. He is dead now," Olivia said. 6 months ago, fever took him fast." "I am sorry for your loss," Quinn said, and he sounded like he meant it despite what she had just shared about her father's cruelty. "I am not," Olivia whispered, then looked shocked at her own words. "That is a terrible thing to say." "It is an honest thing to say," Quinn corrected. "And there is nothing wrong with honesty, especially when it comes to people who hurt us." They sat in silence for a moment, the wind howling outside the barn, the stove crackling warmth into the small room. Olivia took another sip of whiskey, feeling it loosen something tight in her chest that had been there for as long as she could remember. "What about you?" she asked, emboldened by the alcohol and the strange intimacy of their situation. "Do you have family?" "My parents have a ranch in Texas," Quinn said. "I grew up working cattle and horses, learned everything I know from my father. But 2 years ago, I decided I wanted something of my own, not just to inherit what was already there. So I came up here to Oklahoma Territory, found this land and started building." "That must have taken courage," Olivia said, "starting over somewhere new." "Or stupidity," Quinn said with a slight smile. "Most days I am not sure which, but I do not regret it. This place is mine, built with my own hands and my own sweat. There is something satisfying about that." "I understand that," Olivia said. "When my father died, I thought about selling our cabin and leaving, but then I realized that would mean I let him win. He always said I could not manage on my own, so I decided to prove him wrong. It has been hard, but I have managed to keep food on the table and a roof over my head." "That is more than a lot of people can say," Quinn observed. You should be proud of yourself. Proud. That was not a word Olivia associated with herself, but hearing Quinn say it made something warm bloom in her chest. She looked at him and found him watching her with an expression she could not quite read, something intense and careful at the same time. "You are staring," she said, then immediately regretted it when his smile widened. "I am," he agreed without embarrassment. "I am trying to figure something out." "What is that? How I got so lucky that a snowstorm forced you into my barn," Quinn said, his voice dropping lower. "Because now that you are here, I am finding it very hard to imagine letting you leave." Olivia's breath caught. "What are you saying?" Quinn leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "I am saying that maybe you belong here with me now, that maybe this storm brought you to me for a reason." "You do not know me," Olivia protested weakly, even as her heart raced. "I know enough," Quinn said. "I know you are brave enough to survive a blizzard. I know you are honest enough to speak the truth even when it is hard. I know you have been hurt, but you have not let it break you. And I know that sitting here talking to you feels more right than anything has in a long time." "That is crazy," Olivia whispered, but she did not pull away when Quinn reached out and gently took the cup from her hands, setting it aside. "Maybe," he agreed. "But the frontier makes people a little crazy. Out here, you learn to recognize something good when you see it and hold on tight, because tomorrow is never guaranteed." "I am scared," Olivia admitted, her voice barely audible over the wind. "Of me?" Quinn asked, concern crossing his face. "Of this," she said, gesturing between them. "Of feeling something. I have spent so long trying to be invisible, trying not to want anything, that I do not know how to do anything else." Quinn was quiet for a long moment, then he said, "Can I tell you something? When I first came to Oklahoma Territory, I was so focused on building my ranch, on proving myself, that I did not let myself want anything else either. I told myself that companionship and love could wait until I had established myself. But tonight, sitting here with you, I realize that I have been just as invisible as you have, just in a different way. I have been so busy working that I have not been living." "What changed?" Olivia asked. "You walked into my barn," Quinn said simply, "and suddenly everything looks different." The wind howled louder, and somewhere in the barn a horse whinnied. Quinn glanced toward the door, then back at Olivia. "I need to check on the animals, make sure everyone is secure for the night. Will you be all right here for a few minutes?" Olivia nodded, clutching the blankets around herself. "I will be fine." Quinn stood and pulled on a heavy coat. "Stay warm, I will be back soon." He slipped out of the room, and Olivia was left alone with her thoughts. Her body was finally warming up, though she could still feel the deep cold in her bones. But more than the physical warmth, she felt something stirring inside her that she had thought was long dead, if it had ever existed at all. Hope, maybe, or possibility, or the first fragile threads of something that might become love given time to grow. She looked around the small room, seeing the sparse but practical furnishings, the neat organization that spoke of a man who took care of what was his. There were books on one shelf, worn from reading, and a few personal items, a pocket watch, a photograph of what must be his parents, a harmonica. Small details that painted a picture of Quinn Dalton's life, solitary but not lonely, purposeful and self-sufficient. When he returned 15 minutes later, stamping snow from his boots, his cheeks were red from the cold, but his eyes were warm when they found her. "The mare is doing fine," false alarm on the foaling. "The rest of the animals are settled. This barn is solid, it will keep us safe until the storm passes." "How long do you think that will be?" Olivia asked. "Hard to say. Could be a few hours, could be overnight," Quinn said. He hung up his coat and returned to his chair. "Either way, you are stuck with me for a while. I can think of worse fates," Olivia said, surprising herself with the boldness of the statement. Quinn's answering smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "So can I, Miss Brennan, so can I." They talked through the afternoon as the storm raged outside. Quinn told her about growing up in Texas, about learning to rope cattle and break horses, about the family ranch that sprawled over thousands of acres. He spoke of his parents with obvious affection, and Olivia felt a pang of envy at the warmth in his voice. He told her about his decision to strike out on his own, about the challenges of starting a ranch from scratch in Oklahoma Territory, about lonely nights and hard work, and the satisfaction of seeing something grow from nothing. In turn, Olivia found herself sharing things she had never told anyone. She spoke of her mother, who had died when she was young, leaving her with a father who had not wanted the burden of raising a daughter alone. She described years of criticism and coldness, of being made to feel like her very existence was an inconvenience. She talked about the relief she had felt when her father died, followed immediately by crushing guilt for feeling relieved. "There is no shame in being glad that suffering ended," Quinn said when she faltered, "even when it is complicated by blood relation." "How did you get so wise?" Olivia asked. "I am not wise," Quinn said with a laugh. "I am just honest about my feelings, which most people mistake for wisdom." As evening approached, Quinn prepared a simple meal from his supplies in the room, beans and bacon and biscuits that he heated on top of the stove. They ate together as darkness fell outside, the storm showing no signs of letting up. The barn was full of comfortable sounds, the shifting of animals, the creak of wood, the steady drumming of wind and snow against the walls. "You should take the cot," Quinn said after they had finished eating. "I will make myself comfortable on the floor." "That does not seem fair," Olivia protested. "This is your barn, your room. And you are my guest who nearly froze to death," Quinn countered. "I am not going to let you sleep on the floor wrapped in blankets. Besides, I have slept in worse places than a clean floor with a pile of hay." Olivia wanted to argue, but she was suddenly overwhelmingly tired, the adrenaline of the day crashing down on her all at once. "All right," she agreed. "But only because I do not think I could stay awake another hour if my life depended on it." Quinn arranged some hay and blankets on the floor to make himself a bed while Olivia settled onto the cot, still wrapped in her blankets. Her clothes were drying near the stove, but they would not be ready until morning. She lay down and pulled the blankets up to her chin, watching Quinn move around the small room, banking the fire in the stove so it would burn through the night, checking that the door was secure, finally settling onto his makeshift bed on the floor. "Quinn," she said into the darkness after he had blown out the lantern. "Yes, thank you for saving my life today." "You are welcome," he said, his voice warm in the darkness, "though I think maybe you saved mine too. How do you figure that?" "You gave me something to think about besides work and worry," Quinn said. "You reminded me that there is more to life than just surviving. That is a gift, Olivia." Hearing him use her first name sent a pleasant shiver through her. "I like the way you say my name." "I like saying it," Quinn replied. "I think I could get used to saying it every day." "That is a dangerous thing to say to someone you just met," Olivia said, but there was no heat in it, only curiosity. "Maybe," Quinn agreed, "but I meant what I said earlier. You belong here with me now." "I can feel it. You cannot possibly know that after a few hours. Can you honestly say you do not feel it too?" Quinn challenged gently. Olivia was quiet, examining her feelings. The truth was that she did feel something, a connection she could not explain, a sense of rightness that defied logic. In Quinn's presence, she felt seen and valued in a way she never had before. His easy acceptance of her, his genuine interest in her thoughts and feelings, his straightforward declarations that would have seemed presumptuous from anyone else, but somehow felt perfectly natural from him. All of it combined to make her feel like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "I feel it," she admitted quietly, "but I do not understand it." "You have to understand it," Quinn asked. "Can you just accept it and see where it leads?" "That is not how I usually do things," Olivia said. "I am careful and cautious and I plan everything." "How has that been working for you?" The question was not unkind, but it hit home. Olivia thought about her lonely cabin, her isolated existence, her careful planning that had led her to exactly nowhere she wanted to be. "Not well," she admitted. "Then maybe it is time to try something different," Quinn suggested. "Maybe it is time to take a chance on something that feels right even if you cannot explain it." "Maybe," Olivia said, her heart beating faster, "but I am still scared." "Being scared is not a reason not to do something," Quinn said. "Being scared just means it matters." They were quiet for a while, and Olivia thought Quinn might have fallen asleep. But then his voice came out of the darkness, softer now. "I am scared too," he said. "I have built this whole life focused on self-sufficiency and independence, and now here you are, making me want things I had convinced myself I did not need. That is terrifying. But you know what is more terrifying? The thought of you walking back out into the world tomorrow and me never seeing you again, that scares me more than anything." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "I do not want that either," she whispered. "Then stay," Quinn said simply. "When the storm passes and your clothes are dry, do not go back to your lonely cabin. Stay here with me. Let me show you what life could be like. You are asking me to move in with you after one day." Olivia said, trying to inject some practicality into the conversation even as her heart soared at the thought. "I am asking you to take a chance," Quinn corrected. "I am not saying we have to get married tomorrow, though I would not object if you wanted to. I am saying stay, get to know me, let me get to know you. If after a week or a month you decide this is not what you want, I will personally drive you back to town, no hard feelings. But I think you will find that this is exactly what you want, that this is exactly what we both want." Olivia lay in the darkness, listening to the storm outside and the steady sound of Quinn's breathing. Everything he was proposing went against every careful, cautious instinct she had developed over her lifetime. But those instincts had left her alone and unhappy, trapped in a life that felt more like existing than living. Quinn was offering her something different. A chance to be bold, to be wanted, to step into a life that already felt more real and vibrant than anything she had known. It was reckless and impulsive and completely insane. "All right," she heard herself say, "I will stay." There was a rustling sound as Quinn sat up on his makeshift bed. "You will, I will," Olivia confirmed, feeling both terrified and exhilarated. "You are right. Being careful has not gotten me anywhere, so I am going to try being reckless instead. I am going to take a chance on you, Quinn Dalton." Even in the darkness, she could hear the smile in his voice. "You will not regret it, I promise you that." "I am going to hold you to that promise," Olivia said. "I hope you do," Quinn replied. Sleep claimed Olivia shortly after that, pulled under by exhaustion and emotional overload. She dreamed of storms and warmth, of strong arms and gentle words, of a future that looked nothing like the past she had known. She woke to pale light filtering through gaps in the barn walls and the smell of coffee. For a moment she was disoriented, not recognizing where she was. Then memory flooded back and she sat up quickly, clutching the blankets to her chest. Quinn was standing at the stove, fully dressed, pouring coffee into tin cups. He looked over at her and smiled. "Good morning. The storm passed about an hour ago. I already checked on all the animals and fed them. Your clothes are dry and I set them on the chair for you." Olivia looked over and saw her dress, petticoats, and undergarments neatly folded on the chair. "Thank you," she said, feeling shy in the morning light. "I will step outside while you dress," Quinn said, anticipating her need. "Take your time." He handed her a cup of coffee and then left the room, closing the door behind him. Olivia sipped the hot coffee gratefully, then set it aside and dressed quickly. Her clothes were stiff from drying but clean and warm. She did her best to fix her hair without a mirror, braiding it simply and pinning it up. When she opened the door, she found Quinn leaning against a stall, talking softly to one of the horses and feeding it an apple. The morning light streaming through the open barn door illuminated his profile, and Olivia's breath caught at how handsome he was, how at ease he seemed with the animals, how right it felt to see him in this space that was so clearly his domain. He turned when he heard her approach and his face lit up. "There she is. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," Olivia admitted. "How about you? Was the floor terrible?" "I have slept in worse places," Quinn said, echoing his words from the night before. "Though I will admit I am looking forward to sleeping in my actual bed tonight. And you will be too, because the house is a lot more comfortable than this barn room." "You meant it then," Olivia said, needing confirmation in the daylight. "About me staying." Quinn walked over to her, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head back to look at him. "I meant every word, but I want to make sure you meant it too. Last night was intense and emotional, and I do not want you to feel pressured. If you want to go back to town, I will take you right now, no questions asked." Olivia looked up at him, at his honest face and his earnest eyes, and felt that same sense of rightness that had filled her the night before. "I meant it," she said firmly. "I want to stay. I want to see what this could be." Quinn's smile could have lit up the whole barn. "Then let us go up to the house and I will show you around. Fair warning, it is not fancy. I built it myself and I am better with horses than with carpentry." "I am sure it is fine," Olivia said. They walked out of the barn into a world transformed by snow. Everything was white and pristine, glittering in the morning sun. The sky was clear and brilliantly blue, giving no indication of the deadly storm that had raged just hours before. Olivia could see the house in the distance, a simple wooden structure with a porch and a chimney from which smoke was rising. "I started the fire in the house earlier," Quinn explained, noticing her looking at the smoke. "Figured we would want it warm when we got there." They trudged through the snow, which was knee-deep in places where it had drifted. Quinn went first, breaking a trail for her to follow. Olivia wondered what had happened to her horse, hoped that Maple had found shelter somewhere and survived the storm. As if reading her thoughts, Quinn said, "I will ride out later and look for your horse. She probably headed back toward town when the storm hit. Horses have good instincts about finding their way home." "I hope you are right," Olivia said. "She was my father's horse originally. One of the few useful things he left me." They reached the house, and Quinn opened the door, ushering her inside. The interior was indeed simple but well built and clean. There was a main room with a fireplace, a kitchen area with a cast iron stove, a table with 4 chairs, and some comfortable-looking furniture. 2 doors led off the main room, presumably to bedrooms. "It is not much," Quinn said, sounding almost apologetic. "I have been focused on getting the ranch operational, so the house has been somewhat neglected, but it is sturdy and it keeps the weather out." "It is wonderful," Olivia said honestly. The space was sparse, but there was potential everywhere she looked. Curtains for the windows, rugs on the floor, perhaps some paint on the walls. She could see how it could become a real home with a little effort. "The bedroom on the right is mine," Quinn said, pointing. "The one on the left is the spare room, which is mostly storage right now, but we can clear it out for you. I want you to be comfortable, Olivia. I want you to feel like this is your home, not just my house that you happen to be staying in. What if someone talks? Olivia asked, the practical concern suddenly hitting her. A single woman living with a single man, people will assume things. Let them assume, Quinn said firmly. Though if it bothers you, we can fix that problem easily enough. There is a preacher in Muskogee who makes rounds to the local ranches. I can send word for him to come out here, and we can be married within the week. Olivia's eyes widened. You are proposing marriage. I am, Quinn said steadily. I know it is fast, but out here people do not have the luxury of long courtships. When you know something is right, you act on it. I know you are right for me, Olivia. I knew it the moment you collapsed in my barn. So yes, I am proposing marriage. Will you marry me? Olivia's mind was spinning. Marriage. To a man she had known for less than 24 hours. It was insane. It was reckless. It was everything she had never allowed herself to be. It was also what she wanted, she realized with sudden clarity. She wanted this man, this house, this life. She wanted to stop being careful and cautious. She wanted to be loved and valued and seen. And Quinn was offering her all of that. Yes, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Yes, I will marry you. Quinn's face transformed with joy. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides and took her hands in his. You mean it? I mean it, Olivia confirmed. You are right. When something is right, you should act on it, and this feels right. Quinn lifted her hands to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this decision. I believe you, Olivia said. Over the next few days, they fell into an easy routine. Quinn showed Olivia around the ranch, introducing her to all the animals and explaining his plans for expansion. She proved to be a quick learner and was not afraid of hard work, helping him with the daily chores and offering suggestions that showed she had a good practical mind. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire and talk for hours, learning each other's histories, hopes, and dreams. Quinn told her about his vision for the ranch, how he wanted to build it into something substantial that could support a family. Olivia shared her love of reading and her skill with a needle, showing him some of the intricate embroidery she had done. You are talented, Quinn said, examining a pillowcase she had brought from her cabin when he had taken her back to collect her belongings. You could sell these in town for good money. I used to, sometimes, Olivia said, but after my father died, I stopped. I think part of me just wanted to disappear, to not engage with the world at all. And now, Quinn asked. Now I want to live, Olivia said simply. Really live, not just exist. Quinn sent word to the preacher, and 5 days after Olivia had stumbled into his barn, they were married in the front room of the ranch house. The preacher brought his wife as a witness, and they seemed not at all surprised by the quick courtship. Such things were common on the frontier, where practical considerations often outweighed romantic conventions. Olivia wore a simple blue dress that Quinn had insisted on buying for her in town, and he wore his best shirt and pants. There were no rings, no flowers, no guests beyond the preacher and his wife. But when Quinn took Olivia's hands and spoke his vows, his voice steady and sure, Olivia felt like the luckiest woman alive. I promise to protect you, to provide for you, to listen to you, and to love you for all my days, Quinn said, his eyes never leaving hers. I promise to build a life with you that honors both of us, where you can be yourself without fear or shame. I promise to see you, Olivia, really see you, every single day. Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she spoke her own vows. I promise to stand beside you, to support your dreams, to share in your work and your life. I promise to be brave, to step out of the shadows and into the light with you. I promise to love you with all of my heart, Quinn, for all of my days." The preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and when Quinn kissed her, gentle and reverent, Olivia felt like she was being reborn. This was what love was supposed to feel like. This was what belonging felt like. That night, in Quinn's bedroom that was now their bedroom, they came together with a tenderness that took Olivia's breath away. Quinn was patient and careful, making sure she felt safe and cherished. Afterward, lying in his arms with her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, Olivia could not remember why she had ever been afraid. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Quinn replied, his arms tightening around her. "Thank you for taking a chance on me, on us. Thank you for making me feel like I am worth taking a chance on," Olivia said. The winter months passed in a blur of work and discovery. Olivia learned the rhythms of ranch life, the early mornings and long days, the satisfaction of caring for animals and seeing them thrive. She discovered that she had a natural way with the horses, and Quinn often asked her to help with the training of the younger ones. In turn, she began to transform the house into a home. She sewed curtains for the windows, braided rugs for the floors, planted herbs in pots on the windowsills. She cooked meals that filled the house with warm smells, and she made the bedroom a cozy sanctuary where they could retreat from the demands of the day. Quinn noticed every change, every improvement, and thanked her constantly. "You have made this place feel alive," he told her one evening as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset. "Before you came, it was just a house I slept in between work. Now it is a home." "It is our home," Olivia corrected gently. "You built it, but we are making it together." As spring arrived and the snow melted away, revealing the land beneath, Olivia found herself falling more deeply in love with both Quinn and the life they were building. She still had moments of shyness, especially when they went to town and she had to interact with others, but Quinn was always there beside her, a steady presence that gave her confidence. The people of Muskogee gradually accepted her as Quinn's wife, though there were a few raised eyebrows at the speed of their courtship. Olivia found that she did not care what people thought as much as she used to. She had Quinn, she had their home, she had a purpose and a place in the world. That was enough. One warm May evening, as they sat together after dinner, Olivia gathered her courage to share news she had been carrying for a week. "Quinn, I need to tell you something." He looked up from the piece of leather tack he was mending, his expression attentive. "What is it?" "I am with child," Olivia said, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. "I am sure of it now. The baby should come in late autumn." Quinn's face went through a series of emotions so quickly that Olivia could not track them all. Surprise, joy, fear, wonder. He set aside the tack and crossed to where she sat, kneeling in front of her and taking her hands. "A baby," he said, his voice hushed with awe. "We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Olivia asked, suddenly worried. "I know we have only been married a few months. Maybe this is too soon." "Too soon," Quinn laughed, and there were tears in his eyes. "Olivia, this is perfect. You are giving me everything I ever wanted and did not even know I needed. A home, a partner, a family. I am the luckiest man alive." He pulled her into his arms, holding her close, and Olivia felt the last of her fears melt away. She was going to be a mother. She was going to raise a child with love and acceptance, everything she had never received from her own father. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. "We need to add on to the house," Quinn said, his practical mind already planning. "The baby will need a proper room, and we should get more chickens and maybe a milk cow. Children need good food to grow strong." Olivia laughed at his enthusiasm. "We have months before the baby comes." "There is time to prepare." "I know, but I want everything to be perfect," Quinn said. "I want our child to have the best life we can give." "Our child will have something more important than material things," Olivia said softly. "Our child will have love and two parents who want them." "That is more than many children ever get," Quinn's expression softened. "You are right. And our child will have you as a mother, which means they will be raised with kindness and patience and wisdom. They will be so lucky." "They will have you as a father," Olivia countered. "Which means they will be raised with strength and honesty and courage. We will both do our best for them." True to his word, Quinn began work on an addition to the house, a nursery that would give their child their own space. He worked on it in the evenings and on Sundays, and Olivia helped when she could, holding boards steady and handing him tools. She also began sewing tiny clothes and blankets, her skill with a needle creating beautiful, practical items for their coming baby. As her pregnancy progressed, Quinn became even more attentive and protective. He insisted she not lift anything heavy. He brought her tea in the mornings. He rubbed her swollen ankles in the evenings. Olivia sometimes protested that she was pregnant, not ill, but she secretly loved his attention. Summer turned to autumn, and the land around the ranch transformed into a tapestry of gold and orange. Olivia's belly grew round and prominent, and she felt the baby move inside her, little flutters at first that grew into strong kicks. "Active little thing," Quinn observed one night, his hand spread across her belly feeling the baby move, just like their mother. "I am not active," Olivia protested. "I am the least active person I know." "Not anymore," Quinn said with a smile. "You are always doing something now, cooking or sewing or helping with the animals. You have come so far from the shy woman who stumbled into my barn last winter." Olivia considered this and realized he was right. She had changed over the past months, becoming more confident and outgoing. She spoke up when she had opinions. She engaged with the neighbors when they visited. She had even started going to the church socials in town. She was still not the most talkative person, but she no longer tried to be invisible. "You did that," she told Quinn. "You made me feel safe enough to be myself." "No, you did that," Quinn corrected. "I just gave you space to bloom. The strength was always in you, Olivia. You just needed a reason to let it show." Labor came on a cold November night, exactly as the midwife had predicted. Quinn rode through the darkness to fetch Mrs. Henderson, the local midwife, and stayed close by throughout the long hours that followed. Olivia labored through the night and into the dawn, Quinn holding her hand and murmuring encouragement, never leaving her side even when Mrs. Henderson suggested he might be more comfortable waiting in the other room. "I am staying right here," Quinn said firmly. "Olivia should not have to do this alone." As the sun rose over the Oklahoma Territory, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Mrs. Henderson placed the squalling infant in Olivia's arms, and she looked down at the tiny face, the shock of dark hair, the perfect little fingers curled into fists, and felt her heart expand in a way she had not known was possible. "He is beautiful," Quinn said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are both beautiful. What should we name him?" Olivia asked, unable to tear her eyes away from their son. "You choose," Quinn said. "You did all the hard work." Olivia thought for a moment, then said, Thomas Dalton." "It was my mother's father's name, the only person in my family who was ever kind to me." "Thomas," Quinn repeated, testing the name. "It is perfect. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the world, son." The baby's cry quieted as if recognizing his father's voice, and his unfocused eyes seemed to look toward Quinn. They sat together, the three of them, as the sun rose higher and the world woke around them. Mrs. Henderson bustled about, cleaning up and giving Olivia instructions for care, but Olivia barely heard her. She was lost in wonder at this tiny human they had created, this perfect blend of her and Quinn. As the months passed, Thomas grew strong and healthy. He had Quinn's blue-green eyes and Olivia's delicate features, and he was a happy baby who rarely fussed. Olivia took to motherhood with a fierce devotion, determined that her son would never doubt that he was loved and wanted. Quinn was equally devoted, coming in from the fields multiple times a day just to check on his wife and son. He would hold Thomas and talk to him about the ranch, about the horses and cattle, about the land and the sky. Olivia would watch them together and feel such overwhelming love that sometimes it brought tears to her eyes. "You are a wonderful father," she told Quinn one evening as he rocked Thomas to sleep. "I am learning," Quinn said modestly, "mostly from watching you. You are so natural with him, so patient and gentle." "I am just trying to give him what I never had," Olivia said. "You are giving him everything," Quinn assured her, "and you are giving me everything too. My life before you feels like a dream, like it belonged to someone else. This, right here, this is real. This is what matters." They settled into their new life as a family of 3. The ranch continued to grow and prosper as Quinn's hard work and Olivia's practical management paid off. They added more cattle, more horses, and Quinn began earning a reputation as a fair dealer and a skilled rancher. Olivia started selling her embroidery work at the general store in Muskogee, and to her surprise, it sold quickly. Women from all over the territory began requesting custom pieces, and soon she had more orders than she could fill. The extra income went into savings for Thomas's future and improvements to the ranch. When Thomas was 2 years old, Olivia discovered she was pregnant again. This time Quinn was less surprised and more prepared, having been through it once before. He immediately began planning another addition to the house, determined that each child would have their own room. Their second child, a daughter they named Rose, was born on a warm spring day in 1890. She had Olivia's auburn hair and Quinn's strong features, and from the moment she was born, she was a force to be reckoned with. Where Thomas was quiet and contemplative, Rose was loud and demanding, letting everyone know exactly what she wanted at all times. "She is going to be trouble," Quinn said fondly, holding his daughter as she wailed her displeasure at being woken from a nap. "She is going to be strong," Olivia corrected. "She will never let anyone make her feel small or invisible." "Just like her mother," Quinn said, leaning over to kiss Olivia's forehead. Life on the ranch was busy with 2 small children, but Olivia thrived on it. She had help from a young woman named Sarah from town, who came 3 days a week to help with the housework and the children, which allowed Olivia to continue her embroidery business and help Quinn with the ranch operations. Thomas grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved the animals and followed his father everywhere. Rose grew into a spirited, fearless girl who was afraid of nothing and questioned everything. Together, they filled the house with noise and laughter and life. On Thomas's 4th birthday, Quinn took Olivia's hand after the children were asleep and led her out to the porch where they had spent so many evenings together. The stars were brilliant overhead, and the air was warm with the promise of summer. "You remember the night we met?" Quinn asked. "How could I forget?" Olivia replied. "The snowstorm that changed my life." "Sometimes I think about how easily things could have gone differently," Quinn said. "If the storm had come an hour earlier or later, if you had gone a different direction. If I had been up at the house instead of in the barn, we might never have met." "But we did meet," Olivia said firmly, "and I do not believe in coincidences. I think we were meant to find each other that night." "I know we were," Quinn agreed. He turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "I have been thinking about something. Do you remember what I said to you that first night, That you belonged here with me. I remember, Olivia said softly. I knew it then with my gut, with my instinct, Quinn said. But now I know it with my whole heart, with every part of me. You do belong here, Olivia. You always have. And I belong with you. We were two lonely people who found each other in the middle of a storm, and we built something beautiful together. We did, Olivia agreed, her eyes shining with tears of joy. We built a home, a family, a life. We built everything that matters. Quinn pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, looking out at the land they had worked so hard to cultivate. The ranch was thriving, their children were healthy and happy, and their love had only grown deeper with each passing year. Thank you, Quinn whispered into her hair. For what? Olivia asked. For taking a chance on a crazy cowboy who fell in love with you in one day, Quinn said. For being brave enough to stay when every logical reason said you should run. For building this life with me. For everything. Thank you for seeing me, Olivia replied. For making me feel like I was worth seeing. For giving me a home and a family and a reason to be brave. They stood together in the quiet of the night, two people who had found each other against all odds and built something lasting. Inside the house, their children slept safely in their beds. Around them, the ranch stretched out in the darkness, a testament to hard work and love. Above them, the stars wheeled slowly across the sky, witnessing their love just as they had witnessed the love of countless couples before them. Years continued to pass in a rhythm of seasons and growth. Thomas grew tall and strong, developing Quinn's quiet confidence and Olivia's thoughtful nature. At 8 years old, he could already rope a steer and gentle a green horse, showing a natural talent for ranch work. Rose, at 6, was a whirlwind of energy who insisted on doing everything her brother did, never accepting that she might be too young or too small for any task. In 1894, when Thomas was 7 and Rose 5, Olivia gave birth to their third child, another boy they named Henry. He was a happy, easy baby who seemed content to watch the world around him with interested eyes. Quinn joked that they were collecting children like some men collected cattle, but the love in his eyes when he said it made it clear he would not have it any other way. The ranch had expanded significantly over the years. Quinn now employed 3 full-time ranch hands and hired additional help during busy seasons. The cattle herd had grown to over 200 head, and they had some of the finest horses in the territory. Olivia's embroidery business had also flourished, and she now taught sewing classes to young women in town twice a month, sharing her skills and earning respect as a skilled craftswoman and businesswoman. But more than the material success, it was the fullness of their life together that made Olivia grateful every single day. She and Quinn had built a partnership based on mutual respect, deep love, and shared goals. They still talked for hours like they had those first days, though now their conversations were often interrupted by children needing attention or ranch business requiring decisions. One evening, after the children were in bed and they were sitting on the porch as they so often did, Olivia said, "Do you ever think about that day? The day I stumbled into your barn?" "I think about it all the time," Quinn admitted. "It was the luckiest day of my life." "Mine too," Olivia said. She was quiet for a moment, then continued, "Sometimes I think about who I was before I met you. That frightened, lonely woman who was just existing, not living. I barely recognize her now." "She is still part of you," Quinn said gently. "Just like the young man I was, so focused on work that I forgot about life, is still part of me. But we helped each other grow into better versions of ourselves." "We did," Olivia agreed. She looked at her husband, at the face that had become more dear to her with each passing year, at the silver starting to thread through his dark hair, at the lines around his eyes from years of smiling. "I love you more now than I did the day we married, and I loved you so much then I thought my heart would burst." "I love you more too," Quinn said, reaching for her hand. "And I will love you more tomorrow and the day after that and every day for the rest of our lives." It was a promise he kept. As the years rolled on and their children grew, Quinn and Olivia's love only deepened. They weathered difficulties together: a bad drought that threatened the ranch, illnesses that scared them, the normal trials that came with raising children and running a business. But through it all, they had each other, and that made every burden lighter. Thomas grew into a responsible young man who took on more and more of the ranch operations, showing wisdom beyond his years. Rose grew into a spirited young woman who surprised everyone by developing a talent for veterinary care, able to diagnose and treat animal ailments with uncanny accuracy. Henry grew into an artistic soul who preferred drawing and music to ranch work, and Quinn and Olivia supported all three of their children in becoming who they were meant to be. By the time Thomas was 20 and ready to take over the main ranch operations, Quinn was in his early 40s and Olivia was 42. They had built something remarkable together, not just in land and cattle and success, but in family and love and legacy. One summer evening, as they celebrated Thomas's 20th birthday with a party that included friends and neighbors from all around the territory, Olivia stood back and watched her family. Thomas was talking earnestly with some of the ranch hands about breeding strategies. Rose was arguing good-naturedly with one of the young men from town about the best way to treat a foundered horse. Henry was playing guitar while a group of younger children sang along. And Quinn, her Quinn, was moving through the crowd with easy confidence, making everyone feel welcome, his eyes constantly finding her across the space and winking when they did. Sarah, who still helped with the household despite being married now with her own family, came to stand beside Olivia. "You have built something wonderful here," she said. "We have been blessed," Olivia replied. "It is more than blessing," Sarah said. "It is love and work and faith. You and Mr. Dalton, you are what love should look like. My girls, I tell them to find what you two have. That is what a marriage should be." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you for saying that." "It is only the truth," Sarah said. She squeezed Olivia's hand and moved away to check on the food. Quinn appeared at Olivia's side a moment later, sliding his arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything," Olivia said. "How far we have come, how much we have built. How grateful I am for a snowstorm that forced me into your barn 14 years ago." Quinn smiled, that slow, warm smile that still made her heart skip. "Best storm of my life." "Mine too," Olivia said. They stood together, watching their children, their friends, their community celebrating on the land they had built together. The sun was setting, painting the Oklahoma sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold, and the air was filled with laughter and music and life. "You know," Quinn said thoughtfully, "when I told you that first night that you belonged here with me, I had no idea how true that would turn out to be. You do not just belong here, Olivia. You are here. This ranch, this family, this life, none of it would exist without you. You are woven into every part of it. We wove it together," Olivia corrected. "Everything we have, we built as a team." "That is true," Quinn acknowledged. "But I want you to know that every day I wake up grateful, grateful that you were brave enough to say yes when I asked you to stay. Grateful that you took a chance on a hasty proposal from a man you barely knew. Grateful that you loved me back and built this beautiful life with me." Olivia turned in his arms to face him fully. Around them, the party continued, but in that moment, it felt like they were alone, just the two of them, like that first night in the barn. "I would do it all again," she said fiercely. Every single moment, every single choice. You gave me a life, Quinn. You gave me love and family and purpose. You gave me myself. I would choose you 1,000 times over. Quinn's eyes were bright with emotion. And I would choose you 1,000 times over, Olivia Dalton. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. He kissed her then, gentle and sweet, a kiss that held 14 years of love and partnership and shared dreams. When they pulled apart, their children were watching them with a mix of embarrassment and affection that made them both laugh. "Your parents are being sappy again," Rose said loudly, making everyone chuckle. "Let them be," Thomas said, ever the practical one. "We should all be so lucky to find what they have." The party continued long into the evening, and when the last guests had departed and the children had finally gone to bed, Quinn and Olivia cleaned up together, moving around each other with the easy familiarity of long partnership. "Tired?" Quinn asked as they finished. "Exhausted," Olivia admitted, "but happy." "Come with me," Quinn said, taking her hand. "I want to show you something." He led her outside and toward the barn, the same barn where they had met all those years ago. Olivia had been in and out of it thousands of times since that night, but tonight it felt different, charged with memory and significance. Quinn lit a lantern and led her to the small room at the back, the room where he had saved her life, where they had talked through the night, where they had fallen in love without even realizing it was happening. The room looked much the same as it had that night, still serving as a place for ranch hands to stay when needed. But Quinn had added something new. On the wall, framed and hung with care, was Olivia's very first piece of embroidery that she had made after coming to live at the ranch. It depicted a barn in a snowstorm with light spilling from the door and two figures standing close together inside. "When did you do this?" Olivia asked, touching the frame gently. "Today," Quinn admitted. "I have been saving this piece for years, waiting for the right moment." Thomas turning 20, taking over the ranch operations, it felt like a milestone. The beginning of the next chapter, and I wanted to mark the place where it all began. Olivia stared at the embroidery, remembering the hours she had spent on it in those early days, trying to capture the feeling of that night when her life had changed forever. She had done it for herself, never intending to sell it or show it to anyone. But somehow Quinn had found it and kept it safe all these years. "Read what I had engraved on the plaque," Quinn said. Olivia looked at the small brass plaque mounted below the frame. In elegant script it read, "Here is where Olivia Brennan became Olivia Dalton. Here is where two lonely people found each other and became a family. Here is where love began. Winter 1886. Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she read the words. "It is perfect," she whispered. "You are perfect," Quinn said, pulling her into his arms. "And I wanted there to be something permanent, something that would last beyond us, that tells the story of how we began, so that our children and their children will know that love can come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the worst storms bring the greatest blessings." Olivia held him tight, overwhelmed with love and gratitude and joy. "I love you, Quinn Dalton. I love you more than I ever thought it was possible to love another person." "I love you too, Olivia Dalton," Quinn replied. "Thank you for stumbling into my barn 14 years ago. Thank you for staying. Thank you for everything." They stood there in the lamplight in the place where their story had begun, holding each other and remembering. Outside, the Oklahoma night was peaceful, the stars bright overhead, the land quiet and content. Inside, two people who had found each other against all odds celebrated the life they had built together, the love that had sustained them, and the future that stretched ahead full of promise. The years continued to unfold with grace and purpose. Thomas married a sensible woman named Margaret from a neighboring ranch, and they built a house on the far end of the property, starting their own family while working closely with Quinn to manage the expanding ranch operations. Rose, true to her independent nature, opened a veterinary practice in Muskogee, becoming one of the first women in the territory to do so. She faced some resistance at first, but her skill and determination won over even the most skeptical ranchers. Henry pursued his artistic talents, eventually moving to St. Louis to study music formally, though he visited often and always spoke of the ranch as home. Quinn and Olivia became grandparents multiple times over, their house once again filled with the sounds of children as Thomas and Margaret's family grew. They reveled in their role as grandparents, able to spoil and play without the full responsibility of raising the children. Olivia taught her granddaughters to sew and embroider, passing on skills and stories. Quinn taught his grandsons to ride and rope, sharing his knowledge of the land and animals. As they moved into their 50s, Quinn and Olivia began to slow down slightly, content to let the younger generation take on more of the physical work while they focused on guidance and planning. They took more time for themselves, often riding out together to explore the land they had worked so hard to build, talking and laughing, and simply enjoying each other's company. One autumn day, when Olivia was 55 and Quinn 57, they rode out to a spot on the ranch that had always been special to them, a small hill that overlooked the entire property. From there, they could see the house they had expanded and improved over the years, the barns and outbuildings, the pastures full of cattle and horses, the fences stretching to the horizon. "Look at what we built," Quinn said, his arm around Olivia's shoulders as they stood looking out over their land. "When I bought this property, it was just raw prairie. Now it is a legacy." "We built it together," Olivia said, as she always did when he talked about their accomplishments. "Every part of it, we did together." "I know," Quinn said, "and that is what makes it mean something. The land, the cattle, the buildings, they are fine, but what really matters is that we built a life where our children feel loved and supported, where our grandchildren will grow up knowing they come from something solid and good, where you and I wake up every morning still happy to see each other after nearly 30 years of marriage." 29 years, Olivia corrected with a smile. "Our anniversary is next month." 29 years since the best decision I ever made," Quinn said. "Do you know what I want to do for our anniversary?" "What?" Olivia asked. "I want to spend the night in the barn," Quinn said, "in that room where we met. I want to recreate our first night together, minus the nearly freezing to death part." Olivia laughed. "We are too old to sleep on a cot and the floor." "Maybe," Quinn admitted, "but I still want to do it. What do you say?" "I say yes," Olivia replied. "I always say yes to you." On their anniversary, they did exactly that. They arranged for Thomas and Margaret to watch the house. They packed blankets and food and whiskey, and they walked hand in hand to the barn as the sun set. The room was exactly as it had been, with the addition of Olivia's embroidery on the wall, and settling into it felt like stepping back in time. They talked through the evening, remembering everything: the fear and the cold, the instant connection, the bold declarations and reckless promises that had turned out to be the truest things either of them had ever said. They laughed at their younger selves, so certain despite knowing so little, yet somehow right about the most important things. "If you could go back," Quinn asked as the night grew deep, "and tell that frightened woman stumbling into the barn one thing, what would it be?" Olivia thought for a long moment. "I would tell her that she is about to meet the person who will change her life completely, that she should trust her instincts, even though they seem crazy, That saying yes will be scary but will lead to more happiness than she ever imagined possible. And I would tell her that she is stronger and braver than she knows. What would you tell that cowboy who found her? Olivia asked. I would tell him to pay attention to every moment, Quinn said, to not take a single day for granted, to make sure he tells her every day how much he loves her, how grateful he is that she chose him. And I would tell him that he is about to embark on the greatest adventure of his life, and it will be even better than he imagines. They fell asleep in each other's arms on the cot, which was cramped and uncomfortable but perfect because they were together. When they woke in the morning, they walked back to the house hand in hand, grateful for another day, another month, another year together. The seasons continued to turn, bringing changes and challenges that Quinn and Olivia faced together as they always had. They celebrated more weddings as their children and grandchildren found their own partners. They mourned losses when friends and neighbors passed on. They adapted as the territory changed around them, as Oklahoma moved toward statehood, as modern conveniences began to make their way even to the remote ranches. Through it all, their love remained constant, the bedrock upon which everything else was built. They were partners in every sense of the word, sharing work and joy and sorrow, making decisions together, supporting each other's dreams and goals. They had their disagreements, of course, but they had learned early on to talk through issues rather than let resentment build, to forgive quickly and love generously. On Olivia's 60th birthday, the family threw a grand celebration at the ranch. All three of their children were there with their families, plus friends and neighbors from all over the territory. There was food and music and laughter, and speeches celebrating Olivia's life and contributions to the community. When it was Quinn's turn to speak, he stood up with Olivia's hand in his and said simply, I met Olivia on a winter night 32 years ago when a snowstorm forced her into my barn. I told her that night that she belonged with me, and I was right. But what I did not know then was that I belonged with her just as much. She made me a better man, a better father, a better member of this community. Everything good in my life flows from that one night when fate brought her to my door. So on this birthday, I want to thank her for saying yes, for staying, for loving me, and for building this beautiful life with me. Happy birthday, my love. You are my greatest blessing. There was not a dry eye in the room when he finished, and Olivia stood to kiss him, not caring that everyone was watching, only caring that this man, her husband, her partner, her love, was hers and she was his. As they moved into their 60s and then their 70s, Quinn and Olivia gradually handed over more and more of the ranch operations to Thomas and his growing sons, who were now teenagers eager to prove themselves. They moved into a smaller house that Quinn built for them closer to town, making it easier to access the doctor and the church and their friends. But they visited the ranch almost daily, unable to stay away from the land that had been their home for so long. They were blessed with good health for their age, still mobile and mentally sharp, still able to enjoy their lives and each other. They took walks every evening, they read books together, they played cards with friends, they doted on their growing number of great-grandchildren who called them Nana and Grandpa. On their 40th anniversary, when Olivia was 62 and Quinn 64, Thomas organized a surprise party at the ranch. When they arrived, expecting a quiet family dinner, they found instead a gathering of over 100 people, neighbors, friends, people whose lives Quinn and Olivia had touched over their decades in Oklahoma territory. There were speeches and toasts, stories about their kindness and generosity, testimonials about how they had helped people through hard times. Olivia was overwhelmed by the outpouring of love, having never fully realized how many lives they had impacted simply by living with integrity and kindness. "We did not do anything special," she protested to one speaker. "We just lived our lives." "That is exactly it," the speaker, an elderly rancher named Tom Stevenson, replied. "You just lived your lives with love and honesty and kindness, and that is the most special thing anyone can do. You showed us all what a good marriage looks like, what good parenting looks like, what being good neighbors looks like. You are an example to everyone who knows you." As the party wound down and people began to leave, Quinn and Olivia stood at the edge of the gathering, watching the sunset paint the Oklahoma sky in brilliant colors. Their children were laughing together, their grandchildren were playing in the yard, their great-grandchildren were being gathered up by tired parents ready to head home. "We did all right, did we not?" Quinn said, his arm around Olivia's shoulders. "We did better than all right," Olivia replied. "We did wonderfully. Any regrets?" Quinn asked, a question he had asked her many times over the years. "Not a single one," Olivia said, the same answer she always gave. Only that we did not have more time," Quinn said. "I would live this life with you forever if I could." "We have had 40 years," Olivia said. "That is more than many people get, and we have made every year count." "That we have," Quinn agreed. They stood there as darkness fell. Two people who had found each other in a snowstorm and built a love that had weathered every season, every trial, every joy and sorrow that life had brought. They had started as strangers and become partners, lovers, friends, parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. They had built a legacy of love that would extend far beyond their own lives, influencing generations to come. As they walked slowly back to their small house in town that night, Olivia thought about that young woman who had stumbled into a barn so many years ago, frightened and alone, and convinced she had nothing to offer the world. She thought about the cowboy who had seen past her fear to the strength beneath, who had declared with reckless certainty that she belonged with him. He had been right, of course. She had belonged with him and he with her, and together they had created something beautiful and lasting. Their love story had started with a snowstorm and a desperate need for shelter, but it had grown into something epic and enduring, a testament to the power of taking chances, of choosing love, of building a life with intention and care. Years continued to pass, and Quinn and Olivia grew older with grace, still devoted to each other, still finding joy in small moments, still grateful for every day they had together. They celebrated their 45th anniversary, their 50th, surrounded always by family and love. When Quinn was 71 and Olivia 69, on a quiet spring morning, Quinn passed away peacefully in his sleep, his hand in Olivia's. He had been in declining health for a few months, his heart finally giving out after 7 decades of hard work and full living. Olivia held him as he took his last breath, whispering that she loved him, that she would see him again, that he had made her life complete. The funeral was one of the largest the territory had ever seen, people coming from all over to pay their respects to a man who had lived with integrity and kindness. But through her grief, Olivia held onto the knowledge that she had been blessed beyond measure. She had been loved deeply and completely for 45 years of marriage. She had children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who carried on the legacy of love that she and Quinn had built. She had a lifetime of memories to sustain her. In the months after Quinn's death, Olivia often went to the ranch, to the barn, to the small room where they had met. She would sit on the cot and look at her embroidery on the wall, remembering that first night when everything had changed. She would talk to Quinn as if he were still there, updating him on the family, telling him about the grandchildren's accomplishments, sharing her thoughts and feelings. "I miss you every moment," she would say. "But I am grateful for every single day we had together. You kept your promise, Quinn. You made sure I never regretted saying yes. You loved me well, and I loved you just as much. Until we meet again, my darling." Olivia lived for another 5 years, staying active and engaged with her family, continuing to sew and teach, continuing to live with purpose and grace even in her grief. She spoke often of Quinn, keeping his memory alive for the younger grandchildren who had not known him well. She made sure everyone understood the love story that had started their family, the snowstorm that had brought together two lonely people and created a legacy of love. On a cold winter day, not unlike the day she had met Quinn so many decades before, Olivia passed away quietly in her sleep at the age of 74. Her children found her peaceful, a smile on her face, her hand resting over her heart. On her bedside table was a photograph of her and Quinn taken on their 40th anniversary, both of them smiling at the camera but looking at each other with such love that it shone through the image. They buried Olivia next to Quinn on the ranch, on the small hill they had loved to visit together. The entire community came to say goodbye to a woman who had touched so many lives with her quiet strength and gentle kindness. Thomas gave the eulogy, speaking of a mother who had shown them all what love and dedication looked like, who had built a life of meaning and purpose despite a difficult beginning. "My mother used to tell us about the night she met our father," Thomas said, his voice steady despite his tears. She would describe the storm, the fear, the moment she stumbled into the barn and found safety. But more than that, she found her future. She found love and partnership and a life beyond anything she had imagined. She used to say that the storm was a gift, that it forced her to be brave, to take a chance, to say yes to possibility. And because she was brave, because she said yes, all of us exist. Every child, grandchild, and great-grandchild here today is a direct result of her courage on that winter night. He paused, looking out at the assembled crowd. "My parents taught us that love is not just a feeling, it is a choice you make every single day. It is showing up, working together, supporting each other through good times and bad. They taught us that family is the most important thing, that relationships matter more than money or status or anything else. They taught us to be kind, to be honest, to be brave. And they taught us all of this not through lectures, but through the example of how they lived their lives." "They are together now," Thomas concluded, his voice breaking slightly. "And I imagine my father is saying the same thing he said that first night, that she belongs with him. Because she did and she does, and they will be together forever." The family placed flowers on the graves, Olivia's embroidery of the barn in the snowstorm preserved and framed, mounted on a small monument between the two headstones. On the monument was engraved, "Quinn and Olivia Dalton, together forever." Love that started in a storm and lasted through every season. Years passed, and the ranch continued to thrive under Thomas's management and eventually his son's management. The family grew and spread, but they always came back to the ranch for holidays and celebrations. The barn where Quinn and Olivia had met was preserved carefully, the small room maintained exactly as it had been that night, becoming a family shrine to the love that had started everything. Grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren would visit the barn, would hear the story of the snowstorm and the shy woman and the cowboy who had told her she belonged with him. They would look at Olivia's embroidery and understand that their entire family, the legacy of love and hard work and integrity they all shared, had started with one moment of courage, one decision to be brave, one woman saying yes to possibility. The story became family legend, passed down through generations, a reminder that love can come from the most unexpected places, that taking chances can lead to beautiful outcomes, that sometimes the worst storms bring the greatest blessings. Quinn and Olivia's love story became the foundation upon which an entire family was built, a testament to the power of love, courage, and commitment. Decades after their deaths, when the ranch was being run by their great-great-grandchildren, a young woman in the family found herself facing a difficult decision, unsure whether to take a chance on love or play it safe. Her grandmother took her to the barn, showed her the room where it had all started, told her the story of Quinn and Olivia and the snowstorm that had changed everything. "Sometimes," the grandmother said, "you have to be brave enough to say yes even when it seems crazy. Your great-great-grandmother did that, and look what came from it. All of us, this entire family, exists because one shy woman was brave enough to stay when a cowboy told her she belonged with him. And she did belong with him, just as he belonged with her. That is what real love looks like. It looks like being brave enough to take a chance." The young woman listened, looking at the embroidery, imagining that winter night so long ago. And when the time came to make her decision, she thought of Olivia and was brave. She said yes to love, and she built her own happy ending, adding another chapter to the family legacy. And so the love story that had started in a snowstorm in the winter of 1886, when a frightened young woman stumbled into a barn and found not just shelter but her entire future, continued to ripple through time, influencing generations, reminding everyone who heard it that love is worth fighting for, that courage is rewarded, and that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected circumstances. Quinn and Olivia Dalton had built more than a ranch and raised more than a family. They had created a legacy of love that would endure long after they were gone, proving that two lonely people who find each other can change not just their own lives, but the lives of countless others yet to come. Their love story had a happy ending not just for them, but for all those who came after, inspired by their courage, their commitment, and their enduring devotion to each other. The barn still stood decades later, a monument to where it all began, to the moment when everything changed, to the night a snowstorm forced a shy woman into a cowboy's barn, and he told her she belonged there with him. And she had. She had belonged with him completely, perfectly, eternally. And he had belonged with her just as much. Together they had created something beautiful, something lasting, something that would endure through generations. Their love story, starting with a desperate flight from a deadly storm, and ending with a life full of love, family, and fulfillment, became a cherished family legacy that proved that sometimes the greatest loves begin in the most unexpected moments. And for all those who came after, the message was clear: be brave, take chances, say yes to love, because you never know when a storm might blow you toward your destiny.